welcome to the New Investors My Story. Today I am joined by a multi-award winning innovator and entrepreneur who is changing the world of healthcare. Please welcome the founder of Hayley Medical Devices, Hayley Warren.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hayley, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
I was going to call you a scientist, but you're sort of a scientist stroke healthcare innovator.
Perfect label.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me.
So Hayley Medical Devices, straight up, can you just tell me a bit about it, what it is and what you guys do?
Yeah, a company to help people. Flat. I guess
Okay.
in a
nutshell.
In a nutshell. So the idea is to bring forward new medical devices, seed them globally, to do things like measure and assess people more accurately. So we believe in, I guess, offering the top level of accuracy and this technology to absolutely everyone. So it's updating tools in the field, so therapists and surgeons can really use the best on us.
So you founded the company and you created this device.
I did.
Tell me about that. Tell me about when you identified the opportunity, firstly.
Yeah, I think I love this to sort of wind the clock back a little bit. I guess I've always loved helping people, so that's been something I was born with. It's where I just relish. I love that side of things. So I really went into healthcare, that mindset at a very young age. So my dad had a farming accident, and yeah, so it was quite horrific and quite disruptive to the family in terms of the rehabilitation after. So it was just one day I was out in the in the field,
Yeah.
and Dad got his arm caught in this piece of machinery, and it was awful. This amazing pillar of a man who I'd never seen cry. Was in a lot of pain, and I was kind of on the kid on duty that day. So at 10, driving across the paddock, Dad in the passenger seat, Royal Flying Doctors meeting us the other side, ready to ship him straight into surgery. So
Oh wow.
yeah,
That would have been traumatic.
yeah, but also growing. Like, you don't really know where these events in life are going to serve you until later in life. So that was my beginning of healthcare. Okay, this is what it's like. It's quite disruptive to families. We have to leave the farm. We have to drive 500 kilometres to get to his rehabilitation needs.
Yeah.
So even at the very young age, I was thinking, what can we do to get people at home who are recovering from injury? More devices, more help. So yeah.
At that point in time, at such a young age, you decided, okay, this is what I want to do. Because you were in a remote area, fairly remote area.
Yeah, I went to school in a tiny school called Mount Many Peaks with 50 kids, I should say. 50 kids, from zero right up to high school. And so tiny community. And so very much grew up in that rural environment.
What did you decide to study?
Yeah, so I actually went into teaching out of all things because my parents, being a young 18-year-old, they thought that would be a great role. I like caring and I like working with people. So I ended up I went in, did it, hated it. And I remember my first prac, I was just ready to get out of that classroom. And then I went into the science-based degree. So over 12 years of university studies, I basically I came out with physio, and went into that sort of world.
At what point then did you decide you were going to set up Hayley Medical Devices, or what was the opportunity that you saw?
Yeah, it's such again, it comes back to events that kind of triggered or pivoted me in different directions. Yeah. So my partner at the time, his sister and I were actually crossing the roads. We had this other traumatic event come up. She was hit by a car and killed. And it was this time again, it was like, okay, I'm a bit older, 23 at the time, still at uni. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do something in the emergency kind of, healthcare sector. And so that again started my thought process to that. And so, those thoughts were in the back of my mind. I'm studying science, I'm studying physiotherapy. And then the next trigger for me, and it sounds crazy to say it because it's quite an unbelievable story and for something to happen to a family. My partner at the time then, which was His sister had already passed away. He was in an accident and passed away while he was travelling. So this amazing man, geologist, certainly would have got married. It was long-term relationship. But that happened, and it just triggered this: life is too short. What am I doing in terms of where am I going? What's my mission in life?
Those sort of traumatic experiences, for a lot of people, would have sent them the other way, no?
It does, and it does. You sink or you rise to the top.
Yeah.
And it took me 12 months to come back on top. To be honest, I really learnt so much about myself in the depths of that grief.
Like, what was some of the biggest support at the time, or what helped you get through that?
Not accepting. I think family was an amazing part of it. There's so many intricacies I could you should write a book on one day about how this accident happened. And we worked with the Bolivian government to get his body back into Australia. And we literally had my mum and my dad around the kitchen table working on laptops, working with the Bolivian government to get him back over. So very much
in Bolivia.
when he was travelling in.
He was in Bolivia
at the time, time of the accident. So family was a tremendous lean on and support for me, and
So these very traumatic events, so that spurred you on to think, okay, I want to do something with my life. I want to do something. I want to make a difference.
Yep, let's make a difference. And then, so from there, I'd had that idea. So earlier on, Dad's accident, healthcare, Vic's accident. Let's do something in that field. Studied it. I'd had this idea around the first tool called a goniometer.
I had to actually press pronunciation on Google to say goniometer. Yes, a goniometer. Okay, so what is a goniometer?
It's just a device that measures how the body moves. Simply, it's a flash angle finder. That's all it is. So therapists use it. So if you've come in from a skiing accident and we want to understand how much you're moving, we'll use a goniometer to have a look at your range. Do a treatment, remeasure with the goniometer, and see if you're getting better or worse.
So it measures joint movement.
Measures joint movement.
So what was different about your device to what people were using before?
Yeah. So I guess at that point, I had that idea around let's innovate this idea.
Yeah.
I had, we talk about friends, family and fools in terms of cash coming to the company. Yeah. I had an inheritance through Tim, which I used to start the company.
Okay.
And so it kind of triggered that ability to start something. The current state of play when we're looking at goniometers on the market was around 30 degrees of error. So between two different therapists using the goniometer, you could get up to 30 degrees out. And so that was giving the physical therapists and the students using it a different clinical picture of how the patient was improving or declining. So we brought one on the market to make it within 1 degree.
You have it here. Can you show us?
We do. So yeah, it's very.
So you would just, I've got a broken knee, say, or whatever it is, and then you just rub it across here and you can tell me how much movement I have.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I do a little line up with the lasers, and it's very similar hardware and very simple hardware. It's like the iPhone. So we've got the sensors in there that just detect movement. We take a position in space, we move it again, we take another position in space, and you get a range. And that, just purely through the design, we were able to make Halo 1 degree of accuracy. So really update our first tool in the market for therapists.
So who did you need to contact to get that, say the first prototype?
Yeah.
Did you, who were you working with?
We worked with I won't say the names of them because it didn't work out in the best way.
Okay.
We ended up spending, and when I say we, at this point it's me.
Yeah.
So I ended up spending, I think about $90,000 on this group of engineers that didn't have the capacity to build up what we needed. And so I was asking, I guess being green myself and first innovator, and then really learning all the skills as I needed. I didn't really have the questions I needed to ask a set of engineers to make sure they could make what I wanted.
Okay.
So we got all the way down the track, $90,000 later with this little engineer company, and they just didn't have the solution. They couldn't quite get the accuracy in. And so that was through a referral of back, 9 years ago. Someone knew someone who worked with sensors. Sounded like a great start in Perth, and that's how we kicked off.
How did you come back from that then? What was the next step?
It's been a really interesting flow. I've in between doing the development and things, I've applied for awards, and we were lucky in that we started off winning the Innovator of the Year, and from that a little bit of a cascade happened. So I got my first mentor, which led into my first investor, and also I guess from that point it sort of led into the next development, more sophisticated introductions to overseas manufacturers.
So what were some of the biggest hurdles that you had to overcome? Obviously that was that first engineering firm, but then from there to get to the product that's working, to having 2 million people using it.
Yeah, so many. It's interesting where to start. It's about positioning the product right in the market.
Yeah.
Trial and error, understanding, what product are we going to go to market with, because you've got, I'm surrounded with customers who want this feature and this feature, and you've got to be able to tune in and really understand what's going to be your minimal viable product, obviously.
Sure, yeah.
And I know people speak around MVPs a lot. And so we tuned in, understood what the customer basically needed, and we would add features from there. So really understanding then what the price point or the barriers were going to be for customers.
Yeah.
And we saw this really interesting pattern happen. So if you look at the competitor analysis in terms of where Halo sits on the market, we've got these great devices out there, but they're worth 2,000 plus. And so to the everyday therapist, it's just not affordable.
Yeah.
We're coming from I guess a background that I wanted everyone to have these devices so they could use them on their patients, which essentially was my dad, because we want to be giving these patients the ultimate level of care.
Yeah.
And that's through accurate and great assessment. So I guess it was very interesting when we entered the market. We saw all these big devices drop in prices, and so we've driven all the market prices down to make it a little bit fairer, because we came on the market at a very competitive price, because with our aim of getting it to people.
At the moment now, you're looking at moving into AI.
Yes. Yep.
How does AI relate to physiotherapy?
Yeah. So it's more of a bigger picture as well. Being part of the World Economic Forum, I'm in these, recently just at Harvard this year with some studies, and there's little side groups I'm in, and we talk about these exact things. AI, how's it fit in the world? How do we regulate artificial intelligence? Yeah. And these are all questions on people's minds. From the basic questions, am I going to become redundant when AI comes in to the market? Is a common concern.
Yeah.
To how do we implement and regulate the information that these machines are able to process? So in terms of physiotherapy, the whole idea is to look at what's happening around the world and how we can change it for the better. So our focus is around healthcare equality and changing access to just the everyday person who perhaps might have a knee surgery, hip or shoulder surgery, and they go home, and really focusing on those people who aren't living next to the hospitals or able to access their healthcare due to distance and affordability, and bringing these AI devices to them to recover ultimately. So equal healthcare for everyone through this AI.
Do you think AI is going to contribute, or will that be a solution?
It'll absolutely, I think it'll be both. We'll see it as a solution in the next 10 years, but it's already a contributor. We're really seeing it in health platforms where, radiologists are able to early identify certain cancerous spots on an X-ray that the naked eye is unable to see.
Right,
So they're able
okay.
to nip these diseases in the bud a little bit earlier due to AI being their eyes and picking up patterns on X-rays. So we're really already seeing implemented. But I think we're looking at 3.5 billion people today don't have the equal access to healthcare. And so there's got to be, how do we access that? It's got to be through technology and humanised artificial intelligence, where I guess artificial intelligence is, talking and interacting with a person, because we're human and we need that level of care.
Absolutely.
So we need to humanise the AI approach as well.
It's a big discussion. Just to go back to the Harvard, you were chosen as one of a group of young leaders to go and tackle some of the big issues.
Yeah, so as part of the World Economic Forum, we have opportunities to go and study at different universities around the world, and I took up the Harvard module this year. So we had a closed room of presidents, to-be, billionaires, LinkedIn founders. It was just this crazy little room.
Wow.
Everything that was sort of said and ideas that were thrown around get locked in the room. But we start every morning at 7 a.m. together. We have Dream Trust to understand where everyone's at. And we try and progress each other as well. And all these big topics are brought in: what's happening in healthcare, what's happening in global politics. And we're really brought to discussions around how we can quickly, dynamically change them, not only with ourselves doing it, but as a room, and what we need to move in the global landscape to make it happen.
And so bias in AI was one of the big topics. What were the other big issues?
We talked about so much. I guess one of the bigger ones is poverty as well. Obesity came up, beverage taxes, so particularly around the healthcare aspect. Politics, what are we doing, where are we going, who's raising their hand? But they were the general things we came up with.
That would have been an amazing experience.
It was amazing.
I'd say so.
Really great.
You're a mentor for female founders as well. Firstly, what sort of advice would you firstly give to women in STEM who are trying to get into this area?
I love that question. There's so many, and I think as females, we do different things to the guys.
Yeah.
We think differently, and we have different belief systems. And I think anywhere, like if it's in STEM, the things that are coming up are, can I do it? Who am I to do this? And often people in STEM, they might have more of a science background and not like to be out in the commercial world showing people what they've got.
Yeah, for sure.
So they've got to change their belief systems and sort of get this level of confidence and build their business skills behind their amazing research skills or whatever their STEM idea might be, to present as a feasible investment.
But at the moment, there's still about 13% of undergraduates in STEM are female. Mm-hmm. What needs to be done to get more women into STEM?
I think in terms of changing that landscape, what we're going to need to do, and we're seeing it already. So Sydney's got some amazing programs where women in STEM can start and really accelerate their ideas. So we're seeing accelerators, incubators pop up everywhere. Yeah. There's a lot of female-specific ones which really deal with not just the normal business attributes and the skills they need to be building, but what's happening at home in terms of how do they balance the family, how do they, bring this business forward as well. So it's all about that, bringing those lessons in and showing them how to upskill in those areas as well. Yeah. To allow them to come in and innovate in STEM.
And if you look back, what would you have done differently?
Yeah.
What would be some of the things that you would have done?
I would, so for an example, it's taken me 9 years to get to this point.
Okay.
It would take me 2.5 to get to the same point now, because I've got the network and I've got everything in place ready to press go on the next medical device, where to get funding from. The things I would do differently, I would certainly be listening to my intuition a lot a lot more than I did. I think being green and starting out, you take on everyone's advice, and that can be very confusing.
Yeah.
And also divert you off your true path.
Okay.
And so I would do that very differently.
So listen to, because that's a bit of a balancing act. Like knowing when to trust your intuition, and then when you have your mentors. You said you got a mentor earlier on that really helped you.
Yes, yeah.
Was that through chance that you got that mentor, or was it somebody that you were set up with?
It was kind of by chance. So Nathan Buzzer was sitting in the audience of the Innovator of the Year. And so it was through that. Then we had a conversation after, and several after that. And we resonated with each other. He had, as a child, had cancer and was in hospital. So he learnt to code at some crazy young age. And then he did his first invention at 17. Very, very successful man. And I think he saw a lot of what he'd done, he could apply it in me. So it was a bit of chance who was in the room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's important to meet that person at the right time as well. That can be.
Yeah, it really is. And I think one of the lessons I have learned is you've got to resonate with each other. I've been in rooms before, maybe I've done a panel, and then afterwards I just have people come up and say, will you be my mentor? And so I don't know anything about them. I don't know if I can even assist them. So you've got to really, I think, have that rapport to go forward with a mentor. But I have maybe 4 or 5 now anyway.
Do you? And do you have a formal structure then when you're mentoring those people?
Yes, we have, in terms of structure, in terms of regular calls, call me if there's anything I can do to unblock where you're at.
Yeah.
And generally the structure for us is when we're on a call, it's, give me the rundown, where do we need to go, where can I sort of unblock things? And I think that's the value of a mentor, using their network and their experience to quickly streamline that entrepreneur.
Make it from 9 years to 2 years.
9 years to 2 years, exactly.
Yeah. What would you say are some of your strengths that you think have contributed, your personal strengths that have contributed to the success of Hayley Medical Devices?
Yeah, having the experiences I've had in life has made me so confident that I can handle anything. It
Absolutely.
does not matter whatever the world brings at me. I've got it. And that feels good. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't, or maybe still don't. They're a bit scared of the unknown. But the unknown is something I embrace because it, how bad can it be?
Yeah.
So I think the other thing is very much knowing who I am, and that's through practices of meditation and again going through those experiences and hanging out with myself really, and then really knowing who I am as a person and what I want to achieve and bring to the world.
Yeah, amazing. We've got questions from the audience coming through.
Okay, great.
This is from Hugh. Do you need a medical degree or a background in medicine to work for your company or in this field?
No.
There we go.
No, very, very much no. I always think it's not so much the skills the person brings. I can upskill. It's got to be the right person. So maybe they're a great connector, and so I would just bring them in, and they could be the chief, COO or something like that. It's about the person and bringing the skills in and their passion for this area and aligning with what we do.
If somebody had an idea that they didn't have a science background, but they saw a gap through meeting the right networks and getting the right capital, and would they be able to do something like this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's no reason they can't. I've just done that. So
yeah.
And there's steps to do it, and it is about getting capital in at the right time and bringing in other people to help you if that's what you need. Or I think it's really understanding why you're doing it, making a bit of a roadmap, and off you go.
And go.
Yeah.
Sticking with it.
Mm-hmm.
We use our phones and watches to track our heart rate, sleep, etc. Are these good for us, and how do they relate to the types of devices that Halo make?
So they're great. So all the metrics around the body, amazing data pools we're getting, and we're really starting to understand how we all operate and how that relates to Halo, particularly Halo 3, where we will be monitoring more around range of motion, but everything post-operatively, and I guess pre-op as well. So understanding how the joint's moving, the heat in the, measuring the heat, so we can look at infection rates and things as well, interacting with the patient as well. So, actually telling the patient when to ice and that kind of thing. So I think, Halo it's a swagger of body metrics. We're going to be measuring a whole heap as well. So they're very similar in that way. The missing piece is that humanised artificial intelligence, or that interaction, which we're able to generate through a wearable. And I think that's a bit of a leap. We're not really there. There's not devices really doing that in the healthcare system. We've got Google Home, so we're seeing that a lot. But we need to integrate that to help, interact with people as well in healthcare.
Before you started on this path, were you really good with money and entrepreneurialism before that?
No.
No, really?
Entrepreneurs, I guess I've always been an early entrepreneur. We, as children, we're brought up, I guess on a farm you have to be a very lateral thinker, which is a great skill to apply as an entrepreneur. If something's not going right, you need to quickly make something or do something to get it on the pathway to get your outcome. So that's something I've always done. And
what kind of farming was it?
Sheep, canola, bit of wheat, a few cows. It's just the usual
sounds lovely.
spread. It sounds lovely, but on a larger scale. And I think, even at a younger age, mum and dad, it sounds so funny saying this, gave us a calf. And at some point we were able to look at the value of that calf, and we got to choose when we would sell it. So you sell it a bit older, it's going to be worth a bit more money.
Very good.
Or you sell it as meat. Sounds awful. Earlier on, and you make your money then. So it was really understanding around early financial relationships and which came off the farm. But on the other aspect, on the farm, you often have to make a lot of choices. Often, we didn't grow up with a lot of money. Mum and dad did extremely well with what they provided us kids with. We would make ends meet, and I think that helped as well, or even hindered in a way as well, because I always had this relationship with money that, I didn't need a lot. But I think growing a business, scaling a business, you need to have that belief system that money is going to come to you. So there's a lot of belief changes in myself from growing up and then transferring it to the full entrepreneur.
Even without knowing it, you were learning the basics of business and entrepreneurialism as you were growing up. When you did start making money, what was the first present you bought yourself?
It's a really great, I don't know, the first...
Or was there any significant
Yeah, I remember the feeling. I had generated this database, and I was like, I'm going to do this online release of our first product. I just organised the production. I remember being on the plane over to Singapore where we were producing, and it was kind of like, I'm sitting alone on the plane. This is amazing. It's real. It's happening. And then coming back and releasing the product out to this database I had organically built. And in 5 weeks, we sold out the entire production run. And I remember the cash coming in, and I just don't... It would have been something with friends and family, maybe dinner, probably something like that. Yeah.
Dinner and lots of... But that feeling that it's actually happening. And, and at that point, did you think to yourself, this is going to go somewhere?
Yeah, I thought... Yeah, it's not just my idea anymore. People want it. Let's go.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Amazing.
What else is out in the market that gets you excited and motivated to innovate further?
It's the lack of what's on the market makes me so motivated to innovate in the healthcare system.
Really? What were the couple of things?
I look at, I think just recently, obviously with the Bill Gates polio eradication model and looking at what people are doing to really understand the problems to eradicate these diseases which are curable. that's one of the most motivating things for me. Like, how can we apply Halo medical devices? How can I apply my thoughts on a bigger scale to eradicate osteoarthritis or track the prevention of such a, it's in the top 10 disease burdens in the world, affecting over 100 million people. So I'm just so motivated to change that landscape.
And change healthcare, for the good, yeah.
Yeah. It feels like a big task, but if we sort of stick with one pillar, let's go with osteoarthritis.
And that's what you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, that's what we'll start with, and we'll spread that out to other diseases as we go. But it just links on to, if you can change how a person is, maybe we get to delay their surgery in terms of getting a total knee after you've got an arthritis condition. Then once we're in the surgery, let's manage them better at home, so we make them happier. So we lessen the burden of post-op mental health problems.
Yeah.
I guess there's so many link-ins, so it's not just a direct effect on that one disease we're going to choose. If we can affect that one disease, it's linked to heart disease, obesity.
Yeah.
We can change others.
So very rewarding.
Yeah,
Absolutely rewarding.
Yeah.
We've just got 2 more questions.
Okay, great.
Given the trauma and particular professional setbacks you've experienced throughout your journey, what are your coping mechanisms or methods to maintaining life?
Yeah. I meditate. Sometimes it's 2 minutes, sometimes it's 20 minutes. And it's
Is
often
that
active.
guided meditation, or just have you learned how to meditate?
Yeah, no, I still need a guided meditation. I'm not that good.
Yeah.
So I am not great at sitting still. So for me, sitting and listening to a meditation doesn't work, but I will exercise and walk to a meditation.
Yep.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, and in terms of just pushing my limits out a little bit further, I will find someone who's done something I want to do, and I will listen to them, for a couple of weeks, just to lift my game up and my belief system ready to go on it. And I say no to a lot of things because family and that couch time and a movie and a Friday night pizzas that's what we do, and I'm very protective around that.
Nice.
That kind of routine.
Lovely. What's your favourite podcast, by the way? You mentioned podcasts.
Ooh, so many on the go at the moment. I love Marie Forleo for a little bit of, she's fun, she's dynamic, she's got a tweetable at the end. Yeah. Sometimes I like to dive into Tim Ferriss, Oprah. I love her Sunday Soul Sessions, amazing.
Tim Ferriss is great as well.
He's great.
Yeah.
And they're all doers, they're all doing some great things.
And great ideas.
Yeah.
And the last question, what do you think a hospital will look like in 20 years with more AI and robotics?
How wonderful would that be? They're going to be less crowded because these AI and robotics are not just going to be in the halls of the hospitals, they're going to be at home. Yeah. So part of declogging and taking that pressure off and decentralising healthcare is a huge role that we're going to be seeing from the deliverance of AI and robotics, etc. So walking in, it's going to be, the patient experience is going to be hugely changed.
Absolutely.
So people rate being heard and understood as their number one focus in healthcare. So it's about how do we do that? And by implementing AI and robotics, all of a sudden you've got this interactive machine, if you like, or however we want to interface it, to sit, to listen to that elderly person for their full story, or that mum who's concerned sitting in the ED room, and transferring and taking all that data in to understand what the next best triage or healthcare move is for them. So people will be heard, patient experience is changing, like Uber have changed the taxi world.
So when you say that that's the number one thing the patients want, is to be seen and heard, I would have thought that robotics and AI would take that away more so, no?
No. So the problem with the healthcare system is it's so busy. So a doctor doesn't have the time, the nurse doesn't have the time, and I've been on that side, I understand, to sit and talk to people. So if we can find a humanised way to interact and get that same information, and you see such huge advantages in advances in AI to interact in such a humanised way, it'll feel like you're interacting with a doctor or a nurse. So That's what we're saying.
Yeah, and for elderly people at home, like on their own, to be able to interact.
Yeah. Just someone to monitor them and keep them mentally well as well.
Fantastic. Well, Hayley, thanks so much for joining us. It's been amazing, and good luck with the rest of the business.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a
for
mil.
having me.